anytime we meet resistance, it's an invitation for us to get more clear. Like, okay, to get more curious. I would use the word curious. So resistance is an opportunity for curiosity to come in. And we get to look at like, okay, what's causing the resistance? So you might say like, your car breaks down and it's not running on the road. And it's like, you don't stop and try and force the car to go. You go, what's wrong with the car? Let me go figure out what's going on with the car so I can address the problem, have my mechanic solve it if I need to, or perhaps it's something I can fix. But we get curious about what's causing the delay. And the same thing comes with our children and with our families and with our relationships is if there's resistance in the system, that means there's something to get curious about. Now, resistance can show up in a lot of ways.
Welcome to This Way Up, the podcast dedicated to supporting parents and caregivers navigating the complex world of mental health. I'm Andrea, and each episode we dive deep into the conversations that matter, exploring the challenges, triumphs, and transformative journeys of those facing mental health struggles within their families. Whether you're here for expert advice, inspiring stories, or just a little boost to get you through the day, we've got you covered. So grab a cup of coffee, kick back, and join us as we find the bright spots in the mental health journey, because we're all climbing our way up together. Anxiety is such a hot topic these days. Every time I turn on the news or open social media, there is something talking about anxiety, whether it's anxiety is on the rise or what to do to help create a more calm environment. Well, guess what? Today's conversation is also going to be talking about anxiety and how our own energy can create or negate anxious situations, anxious relationships, and anxious parenting. And today's guest, Annmarie Chereso, who is an author, transformational coach, and meditation teacher, is going to share her wisdom and how being in tune with your own energy and trusting your intuition are the keys to raising confident children and creating deeper and more meaningful connections with really anyone who is important to you. There are so many good nuggets in this episode. I hope you are able to pause for just 45 minutes and listen to what Anne has to say. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone who could benefit from it, and like and subscribe to This Way Up. Thanks. So welcome, Annmarie. We are very anxious to get talking to you about all of your expertise, especially in and around parenting, and how we can eliminate some of that fear that goes into some of us when we are parenting. Actually, probably all of us at some point in time, right?
Yeah. No matter what age or stage of parenting we're in.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I've got almost adults. Well, I guess I do have adults now. And 19
They
and
are.
20, yeah, they are. I know. But then that means that I'm really old if I say that. So
No, not we don't age, just they grow up.
That's right. But there is a lot of pressure around being a parent, whether it's from external sources or a lot of time just internal sources, in making sure that we do the right thing. And no one has ever given us a playbook.
Oh my gosh. It's so true. Don't you wish that like out came the baby and out came the placenta and then out came like the roadmap for how to parent, but not just even how to parent. It's like how to parent this particular child, like, because all our children are so uniquely different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when I was a kid, my younger sister is 7 years younger than me. I was convinced that the reason we are so different lay completely on the shoulders of my parents. Their parenting style must have been different as to why we were such different people. And then when my daughter came along, 2.5 years after my son, I realized even in the womb that she was vastly different than he was. And so in parenting both of them was just, I had to change every moment, make a pivot.
Yes, it's that whole nature nurture thing you're pointing at, right? Because we come into the world with our own particular nature, and then it's nurtured by the environment we're in. And our parents are certainly a huge part of that. And then, the periphery, right? So it ripples out to like the rest of our nuclear family, and then the rest of our relatives, and then our school community and our neighborhood, and then the politics of the climate at that time. And so many things impact our true nature. But I believe that our role as parents is really to stay so attuned to our children's true nature so that our children can really evolve into the truest version of their own unique imprint. And that's so tricky because we weren't conditioned to do that. Nobody parented us that way, no fault of their own. It's just we're a product of our environment. And so learning how to really get present and get out of the way of our children's evolution is, I think, the greatest gift we can give our kids.
And probably ourselves.
Oh, for sure, ourselves. I mean, we'd be so much less stressed.
Right? You think about really kind of the evolution of parenting since we've been around. It was that the child was seen but not heard, right?
Oh, yeah, I got that. A finger like, don't say a word, just sit there.
Right. So I guess in some ways, maybe parenting was a little easier back then because you didn't really have to get engaged that much. But then, 25 years later, you're sitting in a therapist chair going, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say. I don't have the confidence to say this, that, or the other. But it is freeing and difficult at the same time. It's to be that parent that allows your child to be the person that they are intended to be.
Well, it's almost impossible in our culture to do that because we're so entangled with what the outside world is telling us should be or shouldn't be. And so therefore our kids are being forced into this rut that may or may not allow them to fully express who they are. So we wonder why. Why is there so much anxiety? Why is there so much stress? Why is there so much depression? Why is there ADHD? And our kids are struggling they're being suffocated under this climate that doesn't actually serve the expansion of who they truly are. So then we go, look at this child's suffering from anxiety and depression. We need to medicate them. So let's diminish them even more with these drugs so that they can fully not be who they are. So it's a really, and then as parents, we're really struggling because we want what's best for our kids. And we're being told what's best for our kids from some outside source that's not even reliable because they don't know a thing about our kid. But there's like this formula that we've all decided is the one size fits all formula. Go to school, get an education, get a job, make a lot of money, the American dream. And it just doesn't work that way. It's just not working that way. And then we make our kids who don't fit in that system bad and wrong. Like something is wrong with them because they're not fitting into the system. So how can we change them so that they can become something that they're not? It's crazy. It's crazy.
And very stressful.
Incredibly stressful.
For both the kid and the parent. I have one of my kids was more of a free spirit. And as much as I tried early on to tame that spirit, thinking I was doing the right thing, thinking I was, molding her into a good child. And the more she resisted. And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I've got to be able to put the confines around her so she's not, getting herself into trouble, but still give her that freedom to be who she wants. And then also give that confidence, because when the kids sit on the outside or, of what society has determined is normal, it becomes judgmental. It becomes hard. But yet once I gave her that freedom, guess what? She found her way, found great friends, and is probably one of the most confident humans out there because she is living who she wants to be.
Yes. What a beautiful gift you gave her. I love that. I love that for her and for you and for the world, right? I mean, imagine if we told, I'm looking out at my tree in my yard. Imagine if I told that tree, you're not supposed to be a tree. You're supposed to be a bush or a flower or, You're supposed to be something else. And I'm trying to force it to be something that it's not. Well, it's going to die is what it's going to do. So if we're not creating the conditions for our children to thrive and to really be the best version of themselves, then I think we're failing. But what I want to say about that is, we're being brainwashed also. And I really want to address that because that is the root of the problem, that brainwashing and that fear that's running us all. Because deep down, every single parent on the planet wants the same thing for their children. They want them to thrive. We want our children to be happy and successful and, all the things. And then we're being sold a bill of goods about the way to get there.
That's a great point.
So what I help parents do is that I help parents realize or recognize when they're parenting from that fear-based conditioning, so that they can start to really look more completely at what's going on, just like you did. You said you recognized where you were trying to squash her spirit, and then you let go and you let her surrendered. I would use the word surrender. And you let her become who she was. Of course, inside a container. We're not saying let our children run amok. We need to provide, when they're little and they're just learning to walk, we put gates up so they don't fall down the stairs. We create containers for their safety and for their well-being, but we don't tell them, sit down. I don't want you to learn to walk because you might fall one day. That's
Right.
not what we do. So in the same way, we have to keep expanding, like, oh, great, they've learned to walk. We can take the gates down. They can figure out the stairs now. And we continue expanding those boundaries within safe realms so that they can continue expanding of who they really are.
What are some signs? And I know they're not going to be specific. I mean, they'll be specific, but I think there might be some general ones too, that a parent might experience either within themselves or see in their child if the child is not living their true self and is causing conflict and potentially creating issues down the line.
Well, I think that's a great question. You mentioned it. You said you noticed a lot of resistance. There's all this resistance. So anytime we meet resistance, it's an invitation for us to get more clear. Like, okay, to get more curious. I would use the word curious. So resistance is an opportunity for curiosity to come in. And we get to look at, like, okay, what's causing the resistance? So you might say, like, your car breaks down and it's not running on the road. And it's like, you don't stop and try and force the car to go. You go, what's wrong with the car? Let me go figure out what's going on with the car so I can address the problem, have my mechanic solve it if I need to, or perhaps it's something I can fix. But we get curious about what's causing the delay. And the same thing comes with our children and with our families and with our relationships, is if there's resistance in the system, that means there's something to get curious about. Now, resistance can show up in a lot of ways. It could show up with our kids acting out, really rebelling. It could show with our kids getting super introverted. It could show up with our kids doing drugs. It could show up with our kids failing in school. There's a million ways that it can show up. And you, as the unique parent to your unique child, you get to know one another and notice, what is my child's unique pattern? How do they show up when they're in resistance, when they're pushing against what's occurring? And you start to watch for those signs. And then also resistance in you, if you're noticing, one that's really easy for people to flag is school. If our kids are not performing well, it doesn't matter if you're in the elementary school to college or to post-college, if our kids are not performing well, and we start to grasp, but we start to try and control, we start to, let's get the tutors and let's get extra help and let's do this and let's fix this problem. Or, if we start doing that, we can know that we're likely in some kind of fear. Now, I want to back up a little bit. I am not saying to anyone listening in, don't get your kid a tutor. Don't get your kid the support they need. That is not what I'm here to say. My kids have had tutors and support, but it's about from where are you getting them support? From where are you coming? Because if it's coming from fear and control, it's likely going to kick up some conflict and drama down the road, somewhere down the road. If it's not immediate, it's going to come up somewhere, because anytime we're in fear, it means we're creating from the ego, and the ego has an agenda for control. And anytime we're trying to control anything, we all know this as parents, you try and control your 2-year-old, you're going to get pushback. And try and control your 28-year-old, you're going to get pushback. Nobody wants to be controlled. We all want our sovereignty. So what I would say to look for is like, I can know reliably if my kids are resisting me, if my kids aren't replying to my texts, if my kids are failing in school, if my kids' relationships, my kids are all adults now, if their relationships aren't working, if something's going on, that there's fear is running the show. And I get to get curious about what that is.
So I can see where fear would be damaging to a relationship. But I can also, so if you're trying to control that relationship or whatever, but I would imagine that not recognizing that fear would also be damaging to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And your own growth. Can you talk about the fear of letting go of fear itself?
That's such a good question. It's so hard, Andrea, right? First of all, I mean, I call myself a conscious relationship coach. And the difference between being conscious or unconscious is I'm either awake or aware. When I'm conscious, I'm awake and aware. When I'm unconscious, I'm simply unawake or not aware. It's not a problem. It's pretty normal that we're walking around the planet unaware. And once we start to face our fears, it's really scary. Because what that means is if we start to look in the mirror and take responsibility for how fear is controlling us, and then we have to let go. So like I said earlier, you surrendered to your daughter's spirit. You let her spirit lead you. Now what happens is we're stepping into the unknown. And that is the scariest thing we do as human beings, is step into the unknown, because we don't know the outcome. Now, by the way, none of us know the outcome ever. Even if we follow the plan and follow the rule book, we think we know. We don't know. We have no idea. Like nobody knew COVID was going to happen. And like we planned and planned and planned. And then all of a sudden this thing happened and life turned upside down. And I thought it was the greatest thing on the planet for teaching us how to be with the unknown. And I loved it. My kids were all college age at the time. And I said, you guys are having to pivot. And this is what life is about. Life is teaching you that it doesn't always go as planned and you don't always get exactly what you want. And this is an opportunity to build that muscle of resilience. And it sucks. And it doesn't feel good. And you can grieve the loss of all the things you're losing. All of that can be true. But stepping into the unknown is scary, and we want control as human beings. We want to control the outcome. We want to control the end result. But the truth is we can't. So we've got to get comfortable being in fear and staying in sort of the fire of fear so that we can build up that resilience and know, wow, like how capable am I? How strong am I? How resilient am I? All of those things.
And you're modeling. When you're doing that, you're modeling for your kids.
Oh, for sure.
I can imagine if I'm being told this as a younger parent, that I would be like, okay, so I'm supposed to be embracing my child for who he or she is, or I need to be letting go of some of this control. How do I know or determine whether it is control that it is based in fear, or if it's just trying to stay within the societal boundaries that are necessary to raise my child? And that child may be just pushing back because of a developmental milestone or whatever.
Give me an example.
So,
if you can.
Okay. And I'm going to use my own kids because that's what I have to do. My 3-year-old daughter Or I get a phone call from my mom once, from my talking about my 3-year-old daughter who was in the bathroom, who refused to wash her hands. Refused to wash her hands. And my mom calls and says, "I've been in here for 9 minutes. I've been timing it. How do I get her to wash her hands?" And so, right. I mean, there's a real good reason why we should want to wash our hands. Now, I told my mom 9 minutes is a bit excessive. Leave the bathroom with her. My mom was trying to hold on to, we need to do this. And again, is that her being her true spirit? Well, no, her true spirit was she wanted to go do something else, or whatever it was. But how do I know when to let go? When is it that it's like, okay, just because she's quote unquote winning the war in not washing her hands, is that a true fear-based, or was my mom getting into kind of a control thing with my daughter saying, "Hey, no, you got to do this because you got to do it because
Yeah,
I want
gosh.
you to do it."
Well, there's all sorts of things. Like I remember, when our moms who parented us are parenting our kids, it's really interesting because it's like, oh, I remember my mom doing that when I was a kid. And I don't know what your upbringing was like, but I grew up and it was do what I say. Don't question do as I say, not as I do. And this is the way it is. And we don't question anything. So there wouldn't even be an option. You're not leaving this bathroom until you wash your hands. And so there's a lack of sovereignty there, right? Because your 3-year-old is not given a choice. Now, do I agree with your mom that these are good habits to have, washing your hands, etc.? Yes, of course I agree with her. Do I agree that spending 9 minutes in the bathroom is the response that is going to get the result that she wants? Clearly not, right? So it didn't necessarily work. But in those cases, I really like to pay attention to how I'm being, right, with what's occurring. So it's an energetic experience. So the story I'm making up without knowing your mom or your daughter or any of the circumstances is that your mom was probably a little stuck in righteousness. Like, this has to happen. The content really doesn't matter, whether or not it's washing your hands or going to college. Like, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the energy behind the intention. And so your mother's coming at it from this energy of pushing, of forcing. So I would say that she's in a fear-based consciousness. And so our kids, especially our little 3-year-olds, are energetic beings. They're just bundles of energy, and they're responding to the energy of what's happening in the space. So we want to invite our kids into a higher frequency of love, of compassion, of generosity, of kindness. And so when we catch ourselves in those lower vibrational frequencies of control and fear, we have to learn to shift ourselves. And then what will happen is our children meet us in that energetic space. From that place, cooperation is much more likely to happen. So it becomes less about washing the hands and more about like, oh, we're collaborating together for a similar goal. And I don't know about you, but I can remember when my kids were little and when I was coming at it from force and like control and like, we have to do this, I always got met with more resistance than like when I was in a more easeful energy, when I was lighter. And I wouldn't say that I was necessarily super conscious of my parenting in the early stages. I was just figuring it out. But your mood impacts others, the way you show up. So our kids, they entrain with us. So I imagine your mother was just sort of stuck in her like a righteous, and your daughter, her fiery spirit was righteous too.
Well, I was worried that my example wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be with that, by the way, because it wasn't very Katie Couric of me. But but it got me to exactly where I wanted, which was this energy that you're feeling inside. So you're not only getting curious about your child and who they are, you're also being very curious about who you are.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I am pretty sure that we would be able to eliminate some fear if we also parented more in alignment with who we are as a person
Yes.
rather than trying to fight that.
Oh, I think so, for sure. And, you just demonstrated a beautiful thing, which was you said you were worried this question wasn't going to get you where you wanted to go, yet you asked it anyway. So, right there, you're demonstrating this point of surrendering. Like, okay, this is the question that's coming forward. I'm just going to trust it and let it lead me. And lo and behold, it took you where you wanted to go without you having to force it or control it or try and make it fit. That was just what came forward, and you trusted. You listened to that inner voice. That was like the example that came forward. You just went with it. And this is the way that I believe we're meant to live. I believe that we are in co-creation with life. We have a higher self and our spirit guides and lots of energies co-creating our life experience with us. And when we listen to those inner voices and when we let that intelligence come through us, we are much more successful at co-creating the results in our life that we truly, truly want. So I think I went off on a little bit of a tangent myself and not necessarily addressing your question, but I wanted to point that out because it's these little tiny examples of listening to your inner knowing, your intuition, your guides, that they're like gingerbread crumbs in life. And the more you listen to them, the more you follow them, the more likely you are to get where you're supposed to be going.
Okay, now I'm going to say something in fear of maybe it not being as big of a revelation to somebody else, but I just had a revelation when you were talking.
I love it.
As early humans, we entirely based our decisions on instinct. We were just, everything. In order to survive, we had to be aware of all of our surroundings. We had to be aware of the smallest things.
Uh-huh.
And as we have developed into a society, now we are so dependent on external factors to help guide us instead of listening to our own tuition. We've really silenced that over the years. That was my big revelation, by the way.
That's huge.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
huge. That's by design, by the way, that our intuition has been silenced.
Ooh, explain that.
Well, the less we listen to our intuition, particularly as women, the less connected we are to source, and the less we're letting that intuition in so that it can guide us. So now we are no longer connected, literally connected to the divine intelligence that we are, and we're outsourcing that to culture, patriarchy, all the things outside us that have a different agenda. So if we're silent, if we're lost in our phones, if we're stressed, if we're anxious, if we're all those things, then we're actually not source connected. And when we're not source connected, we can't connect to that intelligence. Therefore, we cannot use it to co-create life. It is by design that that's happening. It's why the telephones exist. It is why there's so much fear in the news. If we stay in fear, we stay disconnected, we trust something outside us that is not trustworthy, and then we lose our way. And we become disempowered. I mean, that's the core of it, because our power is right here, right inside us. Your power is right there. This part of you that knew, I have got to set my daughter's spirit free. That part of you was an empowered part of you. You didn't know what was going to happen when you set her spirit free. You just trusted, this is what I know as a woman, as a mother, as a creator of life. I know that this is what's the right thing to do right now. And I'm just going to trust that. But if you go and give all that up to everyone else, they're going to have 29 people are going to have 29 different ideas about what's right and what's wrong. We have to learn to come back to trusting ourselves again. It's huge, particularly as women.
I read an article recently about this trend of young parents outsourcing parenting, getting their children at a very young age into therapy and in counseling. And I'm thinking, there are times when they need that support. And yes, we would all like a rule, a handbook on how to parent. But gosh, the divide that must be putting between the knowledge of your child has got to be huge because you've got somebody else basically molding your child. And let me also backtrack and say, I'm actually a firm believer in outsourcing. If you can paint my house better than me, you do it. It'll be faster. But when it comes to something that's so personal, I worry that is not in the best interest of, kids and parenting for future generations, because no one knows your child better than you.
We cannot outsource connection.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Connection's at the core of parenting. So if we stay first connected to ourselves, sovereign in ourselves as women, as mothers, and we then allow our children to be sovereign beings, and then we create connection from that place, one sovereign being, another sovereign being. Together, it's unstoppable. It's incredibly powerful. But the minute you insert something in between, you're severing that innate connection. I mean, think about taking the umbilical cord and cutting it in half while you're growing your baby inside your body. They would lose their connection to life. You are their connection to life. Like, this is a mother and a child. There's nothing like that. Nothing can replace that.
So now you said putting something in between. Now you've got a father who may not have grown the child inside of them, but certainly has their own special connection.
Of course.
But it's still, when you have two people doing two things, it's one of them's going to be doing it one way and one of them's going to be doing it another way. How do you mesh that together on a very superficial level, by the way, but so that you can do you can parent in a non-fearful way and really honor your child and their sovereignty?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that was so hard to do as a parent. And then I became a divorced parent. So now I'm doing it with someone who's not my partner. And then I became married to a man with his own children. So now I'm doing it I'm co-parenting with someone and they're not even my children. So it's like so many layers. So how do we do that? And it starts at the level of, I think, of the adult relationship. In my experience, our kids watch what we're doing. They do very little of what we say, and they do everything of what we do. So I think first and foremost, it starts at the level of the relationship of the adults that they're observing. Again, I want to bring it back to energy. We're in training with the energetics of one another. And our children they're made of our DNA. They're naturally energetically connected to us. So, there's so many things as I watch. My kids are now in their 20s, mid and late 20s, and I can see my son as he became the age that his dad was when I met him. I'm like, oh my God, he is very similar to him, like in behavior and things he's doing, choices he's making. It's amazing to me how uncanny it is. So when it comes to this idea of how do we co-parent for the best interest of our child, I think it comes down to things like, how do we collaborate? How do we negotiate? We're not always going to agree on things. So what do we make that mean inside the family system? And what I have found is with my kids, of course, I was divorced when they were very young. My kids were 5 and under. Their dad and I had very different ideas about, how to raise them. And they had to learn to navigate 2 different households, 2 different mindsets, 2 different ways of being. And for a long time, all the therapists will say and the books will say it's ideal that you're on the same page and all the things. And of course it is. Of course that is ideal. That's not the real world. I don't know anyone who's listening in, like, that's not the real world. And there are a few people who can do that. But when you can't do it, I started to look for the gift. I started to look for my job isn't here to try and convince my ex-husband to be a different human being. But we are not married anymore. I got off that train. But I can help my children learn how to navigate these different ways of being from a place of empowerment and support them in developing the skills and the qualities that they need to survive in the world with these two different human beings who are parenting them, so that they're confident, so that they're articulate, so that they feel like they have agency, all the things. And I have these conversations still with my 20-year-old daughter who her dad has very strong opinions. He's very rigid. He's just very righteous and not very flexible. And she doesn't like it. But she doesn't feel like she has free to debate with him or stand up for herself. And I just keep saying to her, he's just a wonderful teacher for you. He's teaching you how to stand up for yourself, and you're choosing not to. And then you're going to get the results you get in life. And she's going to have to learn. It's one of the gifts. So I don't think it's a matter of like trying to get one another on the same page, even though that's beautiful, even though that's lovely. And when it works that way, it's amazing. But I do think it's about learning to, again, catch yourself in that adult relationship. Am I trying to control my spouse so that they do it my way? Am I coming from fear and control? Is my ego on board, or is my true self on board? Am I just trusting and letting it go? And I work with lots and lots of couples around these issues, around parenting. And I use this model that helps people identify when they're in relationship to one another from fear versus from trust or love. And that helps support parents get on the same page, or at least, not necessarily on the same page with agreeing with each other, but both surrendering and letting go of control a little bit.
And not giving away your secret sauce or anything, but can you share a little bit about that model?
Oh, yeah. It's a model that uses, you could take a piece of paper and put a line across the middle of a piece of paper. And I say, we ask this question, where am I? I'm either up here, sort of above the line, and I am in a place of love. I'm in a deep place of trust. I'm curious. Or if I'm below that line, I'm in my ego self. I'm in a place of fear, defensiveness, control. And any time we're down there in that place of fear and control, we're going to create conflict and drama in our relationships. And it's just normal. I mean, we're just wired for threat. We're wired for fear as human beings. So it's not something to be judged or criticized, or we're so attached as human beings to being perfect and to being right and not doing anything wrong, that we don't actually like to acknowledge if we're, coming from our egoic selves. So really, the model really helps us get radically aware of the patterns we've created over a lifetime that keep us stuck in those fear-based patterns, those egoic patterns that create conflict and drama. They just do. It just is. Anyone listening in, and you yourself, can now know that anytime you have a conflict with someone, it doesn't matter if it's the mailman or your significant other or one of your kids, if you're in a conflict, fear is present. And your job is to go look for, how is fear controlling me right now? What is fear? What is my part of the fear formula? And take responsibility for that.
I've got lots of things swimming around in my head right now. Before we even got on the recording, we were talking about how, as we age, we tend to let go of so many of those things that control us and cause anxiety in our
Yep.
own lives.
Yep.
And the second piece of that was, I keep on hearing this energy. It all comes down to the energy. And if we can picture that, I can picture that in my mind, then I can feel it, because I can know when I've got that tumultuous energy going on, even if I choose to ignore it.
Yes.
Because we've gotten so good about ignoring it.
Yes,
right?
we have.
But feeling that and growing from that and letting it happen. I mean, yes, we're not going to walk in front of a car and get hit or whatever, but just knowing where, okay, is that a valid feeling for the situation that is taking place, allows you the freedom to be able to step back and maybe have a more productive encounter with whoever it is that you're speaking with.
Yeah.
And I know early on when I was a young parent, I had a lot of that energy, sitting around in there because we don't come with, kids did not come with a playbook. And so it was just this constant turmoil. And I remember being in awe, seeing like my mother-in-law pick up my kids when they were crying as infants. And then that child just, relaxing into her arm and, just being so relaxed, and that is an energy that we are exuding.
Yes. And the kids are picking up and they're resonating or they're training with that energy. And of course, your mother-in-law wasn't up all night and doing the dishes and, breastfeeding and
She
doing
was
all the
holding her
things.
grandchild.
Yeah. So, I mean, she had a little more freedom and space and all those things that come with being the grandmother. And of course, we're tired and there's a lot at play, but you're picking up on something that's really significant, which is we are energetic beings and we are constantly responding to one another's energies, and our babies in train and they know good energy, bad energy, however you want to call it. I would call it energy of love and energy of fear. Those are my shorthands. Babies are super sensitive. They don't have language yet. They speak through energy and vibration. So the vibration or the frequency that we're sort of in matters. So that's where we need to focus our time and attention, is like keeping our vibration up, which means we need enough sleep. We need to be eating well. We need to be doing less. We need to be caring for our bodies and our hearts and our minds. All those things really, really matter. And not just when our kids are babies, by the way, but even more importantly, as they get older. And I'm finding this with my kids in their 20s now, and my stepchildren are older. So as our kids are getting older, there's more shit. Like,
It doesn't go, your role as parenting doesn't go away ever.
it doesn't go away, and it only gets higher stakes. So you feel more responsible. When your kid comes home from school and they failed their math test, you kind of are like, yeah, that's going to be fine. When your kid loses their job and, they have a mortgage to pay, or your grandchild is sick and like there's a potential problem, like these things feel bigger for us and for them. So how do we maintain that higher vibration with ourselves so that our kids can continue to entrain? Because remember, now they're out in the real world. So they're absorbing all the energy of the rest of the world around them. And they're coming back to us for safety, for security, for, that divine mother energy. So we need
Oh my gosh, that's going to bring a tear to my eyes just even thinking about it, not only from my own kids' standpoint, but I call my mom all the time.
Yes.
All the time. And that's exactly what it is. It's like coming home to safety,
Coming home.
at somebody who is my age.
Yes, and her age, because she's walked that path before you, and you can trust her and lean into her wisdom, like this deep wisdom. And we all have access to that if we allow ourselves to be open and receive that wisdom. We all have it. So I think our role as mothers, I'm finding it with myself. I'm sure you are, because we talked about it before we started recording, but as our kids are navigating, graduating college, getting jobs, moving in their life, all these stakes feel really high. We really need to hold that field of safety so much larger for them. Like it doesn't matter what you graduate with. You're going to be fine. Don't rush into a full-time job. You're going to be fine. Like we know these things, and the world, there's so much pressure nowadays. Social media, politics, the news, Twitter, Instagram, like all the input that's coming in. And we have to somehow, as women and as mothers, as matriarchs, as I like to say, we have to somehow counterbalance the myriad of negative energy that's out there and that they're absorbing every second of the day. So I feel like it's my biggest responsibility now as a parent is to keep my channel as clean as possible, so that when others come towards me, not just my kids, but others, that I can reflect back something that's more true than what they're hearing out there.
Right. Absolutely. And all of that not only brings more joy to them, but it makes your own life experience so much more joyful.
Yeah. I would say, like, as my kids age and they're making these bigger decisions, I can still find the one in me who wants to tell them all the right things to do. And, surrendering to, like, I don't actually know. Like, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I think I might know, but I don't really, really know. And really, like, letting myself off the hook. Like, I don't know. I can tell you what's on my heart, but I got to really trust you to lead the way. And whatever decision you make, I'm here to catch you if you fall and, like, support you when you fly. And if you fall, it's not a problem. And if you fly, it's not a problem. Like, neither is better or worse. And the more I surrender to the truth of that, the more relaxed I am. Like, it's not my problem to fix. There is no problem actually at all anyway. And I'm more relaxed, and then it's more enjoyable to be together, you know? Like, ultimately, the only thing we all want as human beings is connection. We want heart-centered connection. So if I can stay in my heart as much as possible, then I know that other people are going to want to come in that open door. And of course, my kids and my family and people that are most important to me, that's what we want. We want to feel connected, heart-centered, connected to them.
Wouldn't life be so much easier if we could all do that? If we would all drop the fears and the expectations, but I think that's also part of the course for us to figure out how to do that.
How do we do that? Yeah. I mean, I think that's the journey. I have a course, Andrea, that's called Drop the Drama. It's exactly that. It's how do you go about dropping the fears that are running you in your life, unconsciously, by the way, so that you can be free. So you can be more free, more sovereign, more available for the people you love. So when you said wouldn't it be fun to drop the fears? I thought,
Well, I think side note here is I think that the invent of reality TV has messed us all up because it made it so cool to be drama and to have this excess drama in all of our lives, which isn't reality, but it's like, oh my gosh, you say drop the drama. We need to drop the drama and we need to get rid of reality TV because that just, it's not reality and it should have never been reality. That's bad for humans. That whole thing is bad for humans.
but it's super entertaining.
It is entertaining. It is entertaining.
The reason we're so addicted to drama is because it's entertaining. I mean, even within our own family systems, I just want to make this point really quick because I think it's really important and I want everyone listening in to consider this. The reason we are addicted to drama in our culture is we do not know how to connect with each other from an authentically vulnerable place. So in order to replace that, you call your mom or your dad or your sister, and what do? You gossip. 9 out of 10 of us gossip with each other as a form of false connection because we don't know how to authentically connect with each other, have these heart-centered, vulnerable, real conversations. We are not conditioned to do that. So in the absence of that, we pick up the phone, we turn on the news, we're talking about others, we're gossiping about others, we're criticizing others, we're judging others because we are conditioned to do that. So drama is so, like, addictive and juicy. And then, I'll admit it, we have a family thread and the kids will be like, did you watch The Bachelor this week? Did you see what so-and-so did? Because it's so wildly entertaining. And of course, I'm going to engage with my kids that way because I want to be connected to them. And if that's the level of conversation they're having, I'm certainly going to engage with them. And we have it in right perspective and we don't get overboard with it. But I just want to make that point. And I would like listeners to consider next time you call someone, you're talking to someone, notice how difficult it might be to really just drop in and not gossip or not talk about the news or not drop a political viewpoint or say you just saw this, crazy thing on the news about some political situation. What would you talk about if drama wasn't a part of the conversation?
I mean, I tell you one thing, I don't know what we would talk about, but I can guarantee it would be a much more peaceful conversation and feeling inside, right?
Yep. And that's the other thing. We are not used to being at peace. We actually don't know, like our nervous system does not know what peace, our nervous system knows what peace feels like, but we're not comfortable in that vibration, which is actually a higher vibration. So when we're in peace, my husband and I and a few friends spent 11 days in the Amazon last year, and it was incredibly peaceful. And it was void of all drama and all the things. And we had no technology, and we were literally in the rainforest for 11 days off the grid.
Amazing.
It was the most peace my body, I think, has probably ever experienced. And it was really fascinating at how much everything dropped away, how much more connected we all became, this group of 6 of us. And you coming back, integrating back into our real lives was alarming. It was very, very difficult because the nervous system was so calm. So what I've noticed is we as human beings don't know how to comfortably allow ourselves to stay in that vibration of peace. We're uncomfortable being peaceful.
When you went to the Amazon, how long did it take you to allow yourself to feel that peace or to get into a place of calm?
It was instant.
It was.
For me, it was instant. My husband, it took a little bit. But now I want you to remember, like, we were stripped of everything. So no electricity, no technology. So it was like, you go cold turkey. And we slept outside. So we weren't in any building. There were no barriers between us and nature. So you immediately resonate with the sounds of nature. You're back in the circadian rhythm with nature. Like your body almost instantly knows what it's supposed to do because it's following the sun and following the moon, and you're listening to the birds and you're sleeping with the stars. Like you just became one with nature once again. So it happened for me immediately. Coming back home, it took us a good 4 or 5 days to even start getting back on technology. Technology was really assaulting. Getting into the airport was assaulting. Getting home was assaulting. It was all these, because my nervous system was so calm that any kind of electromagnetic interference was really uncomfortable for me. And then about 2 weeks, we started to gradually get back. And then I could feel myself slipping back into the ranges of, I don't want to say anxiety, but, just more disconnected ranges.
Now, I don't know if this is down here or not, but I'm going to tell. My son studied overseas last year about this time.
Yep.
And he took up daily practice of writing in the journal every single day. He was hiking all over Europe. He was doing he was eating really good food.
Yep.
And still going to school and everything. So like his life shouldn't have been that much different. But when he came home, he was like, I'm going to try my hardest to continue with these practices because at 21 was feeling the benefits of being in a more peaceful, more mindful space. Now, interestingly enough, he had maybe 3 months after he moved back, he found himself getting upset about something. It had something to do with a car. I don't remember what it was. It was a driver or whatever. And he was right back to where he was before he had left. And he called me and he said, Mom, he said, I've gotten away from those practices because I can see how I'm reacting.
Yeah.
And it's not feasible to live, one way when you're back over here, but to be able to recognize that, yes, I felt this way when I was in a different state versus the way I feel now, I think is a huge benefit in trying to manage your own anxiety and, stressful love or stress levels.
Yeah, because he can now bookmark that. Like his nervous system has, he had that imprint before he was born, sometime in time and space. Then he came into the world. And then at 20 years old or, that time of life, to be able to bookmark that experience and have a felt experience of what it's like is such a gift. It's such a gift. And you get away from it. It gets harder and harder and harder. But the beautiful thing you said is he got into a thing and then he knew immediately, I'm away. And so that's what I'm talking about. What I said earlier is when we're in any kind of conflict or drama, we know we've lost connection to our true self. And that's what he was saying in that moment. Because when we where our egoic cells are in charge, we're just in conflict and drama. That's just the formula. So I love that he has that experience because he can take that with him for his whole adult life. And it's huge. That's huge.
But on the other side of it, he needs to do it again. Because I think it's like filling the gas tank.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it's going to go down, just like with you in the Amazon. You need to go back into it again. I think that it's very beneficial, and it's hard to do in everyday life.
It is. And the lives we've created.
Yourself away.
Yeah, you got to get out in nature. You got to ground. You got to get out in nature. I mean, it's just, if he was hiking every day and journaling, he was connecting with himself, connecting with nature, and then coming back, to community. Those are the pegs you need. You need to connect self, you need to connect with nature, and then you connect with others. That's the formula.
That's a formula. And I think that is the formula that you leave this podcast on. Perfect. I loved it. Loved every minute of it, Annmarie.
So fun. So fun to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to This Way Up. I hope you're feeling a little lighter, a little brighter, and ready to take on whatever comes next. Remember, the journey of mental health is all about progress, not perfection. So keep climbing. And don't forget to celebrate the small wins. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little lift.